My name is James Bridgeforth. I'm a young and very successful investor. And what if I told you that your savings are slowly diminishing because you're saving your money in the wrong currency? I used to keep all my money in a savings account, but then I slowly watched inflation eat 20% of my wealth away in just a couple of years. Meanwhile, Bitcoin has outperformed every single asset class over the last decade. I'm going to go over exactly why our traditional savings are broken, what makes Bitcoin different, some price predictions, and even more. When starting off explaining why our traditional savings are broken, it all started in 1971 when President Nixon took the US dollar off the gold standard. When President Nixon took the US dollar off the gold standard, it meant that the dollar wasn't backed by gold, which means that they could print infinite amounts of money. When you take the dollar, the US currency, off the gold standard, it means that it's not backed by a strong asset that can't be printed out of thin air. So when you think of gold, people have to go out every single day, either mine the gold, they either have to test the purity of the gold, they even have to weigh the gold. There's a lot of steps to verify the purity of gold. So it makes it a more finite asset that can't be created more of. Unlike the dollar you're able to go out and just print more and more money. And there's also many ways that they do that. But the thing with gold is that you're not able to just continuously create more and more gold because it takes resources and time to mine this asset. Having a US dollar backed by a strong asset like gold is very important. It means that the US can't just continuously print more and more money. When the US continues to print more money, it causes the value of the dollar to go down and it causes our currency to be diluted. This is because the more currency that you put into the system, the less valuable your dollar becomes. And you also have to look at increased currency supply like a pool. So let's say you have a pool and you're continuously inputting more and more dollars. And let's say like prices are like a sponge. The prices will then have to soak up that excess currency that's in the economy, which will then cause inflation in the prices to rise in everyday goods. And at that same time, your dollar is viewed as something that's not very valuable. Because if they're able to make more money and print more money, then your dollar isn't really as valuable as you think it is. You're trading your most finite asset, your time, for something that can be created out of thin air. This is a major issue in our economy and is slowly causing inflation to rise and people's currency to slowly decline. For example, there's a lot of people who may look at their grandfather or some of their older relatives and you're thinking, oh, my grandpa made $100 a month and he was able to buy his family a house, take care of all the kids and his entire family. That's because your grandpa was wealthier than you, although he only made $100 a month, and here's why. Your wealth is determined by the purchasing power you have, not by the nominal value. So you look at yourself and you see tens and thousands of dollars or even just $1,000 in your bank account, and you look back and think that you're wealthier than the people that came before you, but you're actually not. The only reason that you're not is because wealth is really only determined by purchasing power. If you can't purchase more goods with the money that you have, then you're not wealthier. And the reason that your previous relatives or even your grandfather was wealthier than you is because there wasn't that much money in circulation. So his $100 out of $100,000 or $1,000,000 in circulation makes it more valuable. But if you take our $100 today and you measure it out of trillions and trillions of dollars, then our money isn't valuable. It's not rare. Everybody has it, so it decreases the value of the dollar that you're holding. And because this dollar is slowly losing purchasing power over long periods of time, it's causing people to store their wealth in assets that they wouldn't have before. For example, before 1971, there weren't as many people that owned real estate or were renting out rental properties. Every day, or even now, you see people, people with 4 rental properties, 5 rental properties, or just everyday people that own 2 houses just to rent them out. That wasn't a thing before then. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was definitely a way that people used to grow their wealth, but we're finding reasons in different asset classes to store our wealth in because our dollar isn't doing the trick. Our dollar is not able to store value and store wealth because the government is manipulating our money by continuously printing it out, decreasing the value of it, but increasing the prices at the same time, which is lowering your purchasing power and your wealth. This is what's making the US as we know it today poor. Now that you understand exactly why traditional savings are broken, let's move into exactly what makes Bitcoin different. Unlike the US dollar, Bitcoin is a finite asset. It's the most finite asset that we've ever seen. So when you think of gold isn't as finite as Bitcoin because people are still able to go out and mine gold. Even though you have to do a lot of work to obtain it, you still can go out and find gold. But the difference with Bitcoin is that it has a $21 million coin cap. There were only ever going to be 21 million coins. And when you have a strong asset with a finite supply such as Bitcoin, it causes the currency to never be diluted because nobody is able to manipulate this currency by printing more of it. At the moment, Bitcoin isn't actually viewed as a medium of exchange, but it's definitely used as one of the best store values and asset classes that we have today. In a simple term, Bitcoin can be viewed as a digital gold. And don't take this from my mouth, but take this from Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve.
People use Bitcoin as a speculative asset, right? It's like gold. It's just like gold, only it's virtual. It's digital.
And the main thing is that Bitcoin is actually better than gold. Bitcoin is more portable. I can send Bitcoin to anybody around the world. For example, if I wanted to buy a house in China and I needed to get the money to somebody that day, I can send money to a random guy in China in literally 5 minutes. This is the portability aspect that Bitcoin allows because it's a digital gold. Unlike gold, you would literally have to take the gold. You have to measure the purity, measure the weight. You would have to verify the gold, and then you would have to ship it off. Gold is also very heavy. It's not that easily portable, and it doesn't have a finite supply cap. So this is a few reasons that makes Bitcoin more valuable than gold, and why I feel like it will be the future of asset classes, and why you should consider getting it today. And the thought process behind me saving in Bitcoin and what makes it different is that if I'm trading my most finite asset, which is my time, I would also like to trade it for another finite asset, which is Bitcoin. I don't want to trade my time for something that can be manipulated. Why would I work 8 hours a day from a 9 to 5 and then at the same time the government is continuously printing our money? That just doesn't add up to me. So I understood this concept and I made the decision to myself, I need to start saving in Bitcoin if it's our most finite asset. Now that we talked about what makes Bitcoin different, I'm going to speak on the personal way that I save in Bitcoin. So first, let me tell you about my personal situation. I work a 9 to 5, I own a business, and I also have a side hustle. I have a reoccurring investment set on Bitcoin to purchase $20 worth of Bitcoin every single day. That adds up to $620 a month that I'm putting away strictly into Bitcoin. And that's outside of my dip buying. And when I say dip buying, I mean that if Bitcoin ends up dropping 5 or even 10%, then I'll start buying heavier in this asset because I believe in it long term. And I'll also speak on future price predictions and where I think it'll go. I do this for simple reasons. When you pull up a Bitcoin chart, you can easily see that it's the best performing asset and that if you store your wealth and value in this asset, your purchasing power will increase over time as it's already done before. And if you're wondering what the purchasing power of the US dollar is looking like, I'll input a chart of how the US dollar's purchasing power has declined since 1635. And I'm showing this because you need to understand that the dollar isn't something that you should be storing your wealth in. You'll notice when you look at Bitcoin that your life actually gets cheaper when you save into this asset. An example of this is that in 2012, a median new US home will cost you around 50,000 Bitcoin. That same home today will cost you around 8 Bitcoin. This is just one example of many that shows you that Bitcoin is an asset that allows you to store your value in it while also increasing your purchasing power and allowing your life and lifestyle to get cheaper and cheaper when you save in this asset. Now, after we moved off of how I save in Bitcoin and what I do personally, I want to give a few price predictions for the people out there that are looking to benefit. I personally believe that Bitcoin will be at $1 million in 8 to 10 years. This will actually be a 10x from where we are today. And I believe this because the US is actually holding Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. And with the US being one of the biggest economies in the world, many countries will soon follow suit. Whichever country can own the most Bitcoin will be the Bitcoin capital of the world and will be holding the strongest asset and currency that we've ever seen before. And when I say that the US is actually holding it as a reserve asset, I don't mean that they just stumbled upon some Bitcoin and they're just deciding to hold on to it. I mean that the US will continuously purchase more and more Bitcoin. And it's been reported as a rumor that the US is actually trying to accumulate 1 million coins. This will actually send the price of Bitcoin up. And this is just one reason. So when you have major demand, meeting a finite supply cap of 21 million coins. And when you have such strong demand for one thing that has a finite supply cap of 21 million coins, when demand meets supply, that will cause Bitcoin to skyrocket like we've never seen it before. And for the people that think they're late to Bitcoin, let me explain something. Many people view that they're actually late to Bitcoin because of where they saw it come from, but they never think of where it's actually going. See, you're thinking you're late because you saw a $10,000 Bitcoin, a $20,000 Bitcoin, or even most recently a $75,000 Bitcoin. But you're looking at it from where it's been, and you're thinking, oh, I missed the train. But you're not understanding where it's going. There's going to be a time where Bitcoin is going to be $500,000, $1 million, and you're going to look back on this exact time that you're in right now and think to yourself, man, I remember when Bitcoin was $100,000. You can't do that every single time the price goes up. You have to do the studying, do the research, and understand this is an asset that you can take advantage of. And the reason that I'm saying you're early is because of the market cap. There are $900 trillion in assets. Bitcoin only takes up 1.8 trillion. That is a very, very, very small percentage. If Bitcoin decides to even catch up to gold, which I believe is sitting at around $18 trillion in global assets, that will take Bitcoin an 18x from where it is right now. That will simply cause the price of Bitcoin to just take off. So when you're looking at, oh, I'm late to Bitcoin because I remember when it was 10,000, I'm looking at it like I'm early to Bitcoin because it's only a $1.8 trillion market cap out of 900 trillion. And if I personally view, along with many others, that Bitcoin is better than gold and gold is sitting at an $18 trillion market cap, why don't I believe that Bitcoin could get there and soon surpass it, which will cause Bitcoin to 18x from where it's at, which will mean that the price will then skyrocket and put us right around $1 million in 8 to 10 years or even less. Now, before I wrap up this video, I didn't want to present some information without giving you all the resources to study and take on the knowledge that soon got me to this point. So first, I want to start off with some books that I recommend. So the first book that I want to recommend is actually The Hidden Cost of Money. That's going to break down the first example that we touched on, which is what is exactly wrong with our monetary system and why shouldn't we actually save in the US dollar. So that's going to be the first book that I cover, and I actually suggest that you buy this book. The second book that I'm going to cover is actually going to be Thank God for Bitcoin. This book is basically a beginner's book. It explains the monetary system, and it also dives into how Bitcoin can soon become a great currency and what makes this currency actually better than the US dollar that we hold today. This is a great beginner's book to many people who are new to Bitcoin, and I suggest that many of you purchase this one as well. Now, once you've read both of these books, I actually suggest that you also move on to the Bitcoin Standard. The Bitcoin Standard is basically explaining how you can live your life on a Bitcoin standard instead of a US dollar standard. So the same way previously where I explained how I switched from saving in dollars to saving in Bitcoin, this book highlights exactly that and how you can do the exact same thing. Now that you all have understand all the problems wrong with our monetary system, why I save in Bitcoin, along with even price predictions and what books I recommend, I thank you all for watching this video. This is going to wrap it up for today. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, turn on that post notification bell so you never miss an update, and I'll see you guys in the next video.